Good morning, New Braunfels in the 35 corridor. I'm D. Lee Edwards here, the host of the Real Deal Real Estate Show. Today's special guest is Casey Lee, Director of Governmental Affairs for the Fore River Association of Realtors. We're going to be talking about the 14 propositions on the ballot that could affect your life, but 5 in particular. And then we're going to encourage you to get out and vote because it is early voting and you've got an opportunity to make a difference in your life. But first, it's time for the New Braunfels Title Market Report. Today we're looking at Guadalupe County, and there have been some dramatic changes. Sales in the last 90 days reduced 5.2%, but accounting for seasonal change, it's right in line with last year. Now, in the last 30 days, they've sold 220 homes, which is 40 units down, and that's 40 units down from 2022. Where's the big change? Inventory. Inventory homes available under 200,000, 18. Here comes the biggie. There are 373 homes available from 200 to 300,000 for the first time in a long time. That's a 97-unit rise. Then 300 to 400,000 rolls 78 to 422 homes in that price point from 400 to 500. Sorry, between 300 and 400. Stop. Let's just back that up. I screwed that up. Okay. We'll just start back at today. Today we're looking at Guadalupe County, and there have been some dramatic changes. Sales in the last 90 days reduced by 5.2%, but accounting for seasonal change, it's right in line with last year. 220 homes sold in the last 30, which is 40 units less than 2022. Now, where was the big change? The big change was in inventory. Under 200,000, we had 18 homes, but 373 between 200 and 300,000. That was a 97-unit rise. Then 300 to 400,000 rose 78 units to 422. So did 400 to 500. It went to 152 homes, which is up 26. Only over 500,000 declined 4 units. Now, the total inventory is 1,137 homes in Guadalupe County available for sale. By the way, that's 5.2 months of inventory. Can somebody say we're almost at a pure buyer's market? Get ready for prices to continue to adjust. Mortgage rates inched down, as did the bond market yields. 30-year conventional came in at 7.98. That was better than 8.3 last week, while 15-year remained flat at 7.29. FHA came down a smidgen to 7.38, and VA was at 7.39. The bond market adjusted accordingly, with the 91-day T-bill slipping to 5.31, while the 2-year Treasury dropped a tenth to 5.121, and the 10-year fell below 5% to 4.948. Now, the hot topic is recession. Apollo Global and several other financial groups feel it's inevitable because the Fed won't leave interest rates alone over inflation. And add to that the rising deficit, which, well, they're not going to quit spending money right now with Ukraine and Israel going at each other. The only problem is we could become a banana republic if we're not already. The problem is we still have solid unemployment to stop recession. However, if the UAW contract continue to milk every ounce out of the automakers, big banks are already worried. They're starting to lay off some of their lending people. And when the rates reset on commercial, there could be a big factor in foreclosures. Now, if you add mergers and acquisitions, what does that mean about this? You get companies that merge or acquire each other. What's the first thing that happens? They analyze their employment base, and then they get rid of everybody that's a duplication. That's happened in several small companies in our area, but there are several big ones that are on the table. That could have an impact on labor as well. So DeLeon Thornton of CNBC says, well, we're going to have a recession, but it's going to be a rich recession. So they've changed it to rich session. And meaning a lot more white collar will be affected than maybe the rest of us. So here's what they don't get. You lay off a bunch of white collar, what happens? Oh, they quit buying cars and watches and nice clothes. And so the next thing that happens is, oh, they stop shopping, and then the retail places have to let people off, and then it becomes a downward spiral. There is no such thing as keeping a recession within a certain price point. Sooner or later, it trickles down. Now, in local real estate, we see a pullback. It's already happening. Yep, we've seen with the 8% increase in rates, an increase in inventory, and we're going to see some change in some other economics. Add to that the slumping supply chain, issues, parts availability. Car sales will again slump. New builders may run out of cheap money, and housing, auto, and big ticket items will come to a stall. So even though we don't have big labor reports saying we're layoff, the wheels of this thing are in motion. Now, Tim Mullaney of CNBC states the only thing that jumpstarts this back is lower interest rates, higher income as well, and, of course, trying to get the supplies running of the inventory that we need. Well, folks, what they're missing is in the last 5 to 7 years, government fees have risen drastically. Look here, where fees can be as high as $24,000 on a developed lot. That means the government has decided to stick their hand into free enterprise, and in the case of lot development, a 30% partner. The American public is getting hit on all sides, so even if we get a relief on one side, the other side is still poking us. Wow. Now, on property tax, we're going to talk about it here in a minute, but I'm just telling you, the one thing you may need to know is make sure you vote for Proposition 4. It'll help you with property tax. Now, oil prices slid midweek to $85.20 a barrel. Several companies are building inventories, which may be good, especially if we go to war. The stock market was a downer this week with the Dow down to 32,884. S&P was at 4148, and the NASDAQ, well, it went down sharply to 12,619. Now, those electric vehicles that everybody's, we got to have them. California says, by God, you will have them. Well, GM, who said they were going to build 400,000 of them, I came out this week and says, we don't think that's practical. In fact, they're finding that it won't be practical until they can get, a charging station at every corner and every gas station. Why? This isn't New York City, where everybody takes a bus and a subway. This is Texas, where we drive 400 miles for the best barbecue around. And an EV won't get you the whole 400 miles. So, gosh, just try and drive from here to El Paso. See how much fun that is with an EV. All right, so with that happening, what's next? Well, home sales are down, interest rates flatten, bond market pulls back a hair, oil prices down, stock market down, car sales holding but will slide when inventories wane, and more of the world is taking sides on Israel and Hamas. Well, this is getting really messy. But on the bright side, we have Halloween is coming, and it should be fun, and Wurstfest. So great, get candied up 1 week, and then get all the sausage and beer you can to wash it down and clog your arteries. It's perfect. And that, my friends, has been the down week we've had, but the last of October and the 1st of November looks like a little fun. And we're back on the Real Deal Real Estate Show, and our special guest today is Casey Lee, Director of Governmental Affairs for Four Rivers Association of Realtors. Good morning.
Thanks for having me, Lee. Happy to be here.
Great. Now, I want to remind everybody that this portion of the show is brought to you by Meyer Heating and Air Conditioning, keeping you comfortable all year long, and a little bit of enjoyment during the rain. Now, Casey, this is a very important voting cycle, but one that doesn't include candidates.
No, for once, we've got very few candidates. There are still some locals, but most of our focus is on constitutional amendments.
Now, we're going to talk about that today. So what we've got is election going on right now. Early voting's on. And there's 14 propositions, of which 5 of these really affect real estate and homeowners. So why don't we get right into it, starting with proposition number 1 on the ballot.
Lee, we can start with Proposition 1. I would like to tell your online listener while they're at home, if they want to follow along, if they want to go to our website, which is TexasRealtorsSupport.com, they can follow right along with what we're talking about right here.
Well, that's great. And they've got a great publication on it, and also they have in-depth analysis to help you understand the language.
Yes, sir.
So Prop 1, what is that?
Prop 1, very simply, we're establishing the right to farm. So as our cities expand into their extraterritorial jurisdictions, we're running across some issues where some city ordinances impact the ability and the right for people who have been doing decades of farming and growing to continue those acts. We have, in fact, we've run into a couple of issues where some people growing alfalfa, cities came along and said, well, your grass is too high, and so they mowed their field. And that's just one example. And so we want to protect people's right to farm.
Well, absolutely. And I think people, especially in the county, where we are in extraterritorial jurisdictions where cities are moving into.
And this isn't just farming, it's farming, ranching, timber production, wildlife management.
Yeah, and people go, well, oh my God, they're still having a deer hunting operation right next to me. Well, you know what? They got 150 acres. Yeah, they just can't shoot at you.
You moved into the country. It's something you're going to have to live with.
That's great. Yeah. And then they're going to say, hey, there'll never be anything behind us, which is not true, So, okay. Now, what, and does the Association of Realtors support Proposition 1?
We are absolutely 100% in favor of Proposition 1.
All right, great. Now, the next one up is Proposition 4, which this is a biggie. Let's get into detail on Prop 4.
Property tax relief in Texas is what it comes down to. This is a big chunk of ballot language. When you go and you read about this, you're going to see a lot involved there. And simply stated, this is about property tax relief, increasing the homestead exemption from $40,000, which is where it is right now, to $100,000. We're seeing,
and there's some tax relief for business in there too.
There's some tax relief for business. It's ad valorem taxes. We are so right now, and Texas Realtors has traditionally been against appraisal caps. We have
appraisal
been. We always will
offsets.
be. And offsets. Part of this, however, and we are in favor of this one. We think that that instead of capping appraisals, that the rate should really be where our focus is. But some of our counties, some of our appraisal districts recently have bumped up appraisal rates on non-homesteaded properties exorbitantly. In some of our areas here in Comal County, we saw across the board 30% increases in non-homesteaded properties. Those are second homes, vacation homes, short-term rental homes, commercial properties, and so this will also add a 20% cap on those non-homesteaded properties.
And what that really means for the public is why proposition is so important is that when you have these economic cycles, either you have appraisal districts that look at them as an anomaly and don't make drastic changes, or they look as this is going to be the new you, and they just jump all over the increase. So what happened in a number of counties, including here in Comal, is they rose anywhere from 20 to 30% on the appraisals, and it was a super note. Now, just in the report I gave today, we were talking about the prices are pulling back. The question is, we always fear they won't pull it back the same amount that it is because they try to retain a piece of this. So this cap, as well as $100,000 homestead, really was the state legislature's effort to balance the play over the appraisal district.
Yes, sir. And So another line in here, if I may jump to the next line in the ballot language, and it's scaring some people, and it's an unwarranted scare. Back when we raised the homestead exemption from 25,000 to
Right.
40,000, you'll remember that we had to do a constitutional amendment back then too,
Right.
and unfortunately it left some language out relating to the elderly over 65 and disabled veterans, so they're the 100% disabled, and what they have to do in order to set the new rate. So should this pass from 40 to 100, they have to reset the rates on those elderly and disabled. So they have to unfreeze their property taxes, which are currently frozen, and then reset them using the new $100,000 exemption. There's a line in here now because back when they did the 25 to 40, they forgot it and they had to come back the next election cycle after the next session and put
Fix
that
it.
language in. So we had to vote on that one twice before elderly and disabled were able to take advantage of it. This one, one of the reasons why this ballot language is so long on Proposition 4 is because they added that in this time as well. So now the elderly and disabled will be taken care of as soon as this 40 and $100,000 takes place.
Quit watching social media and advice from people that don't know anything about this. Vote Prop 4. 4. 4. 4. 4.
4-4.
Okay. And the reason is that it's been studied very hard by the Association of Realtors statewide. It's been studied by so many other people that are involved with this. The language is confusing, and several of these have confusing language. You've got to, in this particular case, there are a number here that it's positive to go for, even though it may read as a negative. Okay? So Prop 4, that's going to get us $100,000 on the homestead. Everybody ought to be whistling Dixie. Let's talk about Prop 6.
Prop 6, okay. Prop 6, basic ballot language. It establishes Texas Water Fund. Here in Texas, we need water. We are hurting. We're not as bad as some other areas in the nation, but we are hurting. And so this establishes a water fund to assist in financing water projects across the state.
All right, so let me give you an idea of what we're talking about here. So it's not just like waterfront. So you had several water companies went in together that went into a community that had an abundance of water but no population. So they put several wells together they bought, and now they build a big pipeline. This kind of helps. So it went through Hays County, it went through Comel, went through Guadalupe to get to San Antonio, but everybody that paid in got a piece. So Texas, in a lot of these cases, folks, does things on a mix. So like when we get a new highway or widening of 46, it's done on an 80-20 mix. The city or county involved has to put 20% of the cash up, and state pays the other. Well, when we start to talk about things like water lines, that kind of thing, bringing water distance, or the 4 new desalination stations that are being built on the coast, and we need at least 8 more, this water fund will help us finance those and support those projects.
Yeah, it's financing the cleaning of the water, not just the providing of the water.
Right, right. So that's a very important. So, folks, that's Proposition 6. Now, and we're back on the Real Deal Real Estate Show, and our special guest today is Casey Lee. He's the Director of Governmental Affairs for Four Rivers Association of Realtors, and this session is brought to you by, well, Bubba's Fancy Meats, Fancy Sauces, and Smoked Meats, and, oh, yeah, Bubba's Backyard for all your fun on the weekends. If it ain't smoking, it ain't Bubba's. All right, so we're talking about, state propositions. Now, the next one on the list is Proposition 7, establishing the Texas Energy Fund.
Yes, sir. We have run into some issues with energy in this state, haven't we?
All right, so what's this about? So it's the same thing we were talking about with water. We're now saying, well, maybe we need electricity and gas.
Maybe we need some electricity, and really this is this proposition is all about supporting construction, maintenance, and mostly modernization of electric generation facilities. And I've actually been out in the public and I've heard some negative comments about this, talking about, oh, this is just going to support natural gas, and they're the only ones that are going to get any money from this. Natural gas is not lined out in this specifically in this language at all. It's about maintaining modernization and operation of all electric generating facilities in Texas.
So part of this, folks, you have to think is we've had a couple of seasons here where we had huge demand and couldn't do it. Now, ERCOT's initial response was let's go to battery storage and just build up some reserves so that when we get this surge. Now, in the meantime, they've asked for a heavy increase on rates that's going to be coming up. That was announced today. What the Energy Fund does, say, look, one of the ways to get rates down is have more production. And if we can finance or help finance or reduce costs on new generation, whether it be natural gas, whether it be solar projects, whether it be wind farm projects, or nuclear. Look, our friends in the Deep South over in Georgia just completed 2 new nuclear plants, and they will service 500,000 people each. Folks, it's proven that nuclear started to look cleaner than anything else, but it ain't cheap, and we need this fund.
Lee, the purpose of this fund is to provide the infrastructure now, provide the tools now so that we can meet the demands of our growing state in the future, and we're going to need them.
Well, it was estimated today by the year 2050, one of our metropolitans will exceed the size of New York City. And that takes a whole lot of juice. All right, so Prop 7. Now we go to Prop 8.
That's right, Prop 8. Who doesn't need broadband infrastructure? I'm sure some of your listeners right now are listening to us on the internet, and isn't that amazing? I think that during the pandemic, our eyes were opened about just how woeful our broadband infrastructure was across the state, especially in some of our rural areas, but not just our rural areas. We've really stepped up needs over the years for broadband infrastructure, and that's what this bill is all about, is providing the funding so that we can get that broadband infrastructure brought up to where it really needs to be.
When they provided a modicum of funding in the last round before opening this new round, folks, let me tell you, it affected a lot of people in Comal and Guadalupe County. Let me tell you how and why Proposition 8 is a positive thing. Really, AT&T, Southwestern Bell, Spectrum, a lot of them that are running either internet or phone, they've not been running cable just everywhere because of all the different types of things going. So people are using Wi-Fi and Connect and broadband and so many other things. So if you were trying to build a place on a 100, 200, 300 acre ranch and you had to bring that cable in, it was excessive, and especially on broadband. It was very expensive, you know. You could be able to talk to a cable provider, but you couldn't get the speed you need to work from home. So a lot of people were affected by that, even on smaller lots. With this, guys like me who has a ranch in Guadalupe County, I was able to run one line for broadband and go to voice over internet protocol on my phone and kill 2 birds with one stone and add security features. So this is a really important bill to help so many others that want to work from home, but don't have internet speeds to get you there.
I mean, you talk about working from home. This is going to have impacts in transportation. And just like we talked about earlier with Proposition 1, as we expand into our extraterritorial jurisdictions, we get people further out. Unless we're willing to take, put up with some more traffic congestion with building further out, other supporting structures, we're going to need this broadband infrastructure.
Well, and you just think about if an industry doesn't want to be near a city, what does it do? It moves into a rural area, because a lot of times industry don't need sewer, but they need water, they need internet, they need all that. So it also helps economically to entice businesses to move.
We have so many industries coming into this area, especially east of, between New Braunfels and Seguin. I know that this radio reaches all the way up into Caldwell County. In some places, it's growing up there. We need broadband out there because, like you said, it's bringing in that industry that's going to bring us better jobs, better support.
All right, well, great. Now, as a reminder, the Texas Association of Realtors has come out with their list of what they like, and that is Proposition 1, establishing the right to farm. Proposition 4, which is property tax relief. Proposition 6, establishing the Texas Water Fund. Proposition 7, establishing the Texas Energy Fund. And Proposition 8, establishing the Broadband Infrastructure Fund.
Yes, sir. And I would like to let all your listeners know as well. Again, that website, if you want to go and visit, is texasrealtorsupport.com. We've got our 5 supported on there, but we've got all 14 constitutional amendments listed on there. And if you go, you can expand each one of those, and you can see, even though we don't have a support, we're neutral on them. We're not for or against them. You can go and look at what the proponents are saying, what the opponents are saying. You can make up your own mind. We're trying to make you a better informed voter. Please go out and vote.
All right. And if people have other questions on governmental affairs that involve the real estate market, homeowners, how can they get more information on any of these subjects?
They can always contact me at my office here in New Braunfels, but we cover 5 counties. Everything between Austin and San Antonio is Four Rivers Association of Realtors. They can contact me either by calling me at the office or by emailing me. It's Casey, C-A-S-E-Y, at fourriversrealtors.com. That's all spelled out. They can also contact our state association if you need any help up there. You can contact the GA team up there. TexasRealEstate.com.
Well, thanks. We really appreciate you being on the show, Casey. Now, we're going to talk about a couple of other things real quick. And the first one I want to talk about is, let's see here, which prop is it? Proposition 9. So, folks, Proposition 9 is authorizing the Texas legislature to provide a cost of living adjustment for the teacher retirement system annuity. It's not coming out of the tax dollars. It's coming out of the annuity fund that was already created for teachers. So let's look at it this way. They're just looking for a Medicare, Medicaid kind of Social Security COLA, cost of living increase, but they're taking it out of the trust fund, not out of the public dollar domain. So that one's a really good one to jump on behind. Propositions 10 and 11 really are specific. 10 is in support of biomedical manufacturers, giving them some tax exemptions to help us have more equipment when we have medical crisis and that kind of thing. And some of the others, well, they're your call. That's why we're neutral on it from the Association of Realtors. Now, one last one to talk about is not a legislative constitutional amendment. It's called VOTRE. We talked about it here 2 weeks ago, which is required for the citizens of New Braunfels Independent School District to adjust the tax rate. It has to come to the voters. So the school district is requesting an adjustment in tax rate. Your tax rate will go up for the things they're doing, but the end result, your taxes will go down on how it's being applied. So vote for the VOTRE vote to help the New Braunfels School District move forward. Now, for this and other information, you can always go to DeLeeEdwardsRealty.com and search the internet, and we post some interesting information throughout the year. Or when it comes to real estate, you can call D. Lee Edwards Realty at 830-620-7653. Now, next week, we're going to have a very special kind of week as we're going to talk about what really is going on solely and the real estate market in our area. The whole day will be spent on talking about where there's good values, where we're seeing deceleration in prices, how can you overcome the 8% interest rates, what about ARMs, other things, so that you can